What I'd like to do this evening is take you for a walk across our clay marshland. Here's a section of about 10 acres that we started land farming 3 years ago. And as I walk along, I'll kind of do a little narration on what we've done to the field. This particular field is one that we'd crowned 3 years ago, and it was quite low in pH and phosphorus. Potash was a little low, but not too bad. What we did is we added 300 pounds of DAP, 1846.0 to the acre. We also boosted our pH up by adding just shy of 3 ton to the acre. It spiked the pH from 5.6 to 6.9 in a 1 year transition. And our fertility also increased a lot. Our yield, which in turn increased, kind of remarkable on how much it did increase. We were harvesting about 19 round bales a year off this particular 10 acres. With all the adjustments with the fertilizer and liming to raise the pH, our field went from 19 bales to 90. We took 3 cuts of high quality forage off this. What we used was oats, ryegrass, and red clover. The oats basically come up for the first cut and kind of petered off for the second and third, where the ryegrass and red clover really shone. We had stuff that tested up above 20% protein on our second and third cut, so we were quite impressed with what this marshland is capable of. So the following year, we did another just shy of 10 acre block, and I'm walking over to this one now. This here last year we just had oats, ryegrass, and clover. The oats come up the first cut. It was kind of inconsistent germination last year, so we were able to get 2 semi-cuts off of it. It was dry here last summer. We went 7 weeks after our seeding date without any rain. The ryegrass, which was only an annual, it killed out over the winter pretty much. The clover still looks strong, but we're going to be plowing this one under this spring, and we'll be seeding this one down to Novio Timothy and Wildcat Red Clover, which is the same as what the field I just had showed you. We're pleased with how that took last year, considering it was so dry. Although this spring we did add some seed fertilizer, we added some Novio Timothy and Wildcat Red Clover, about 4 pounds to the acre within our fertilizer mix. So this here kind of shows you some of the drainage we did there last fall. We put a ditcher that hooks onto the 3-point hitch and PTO shaft on our tractor. We're just pulling this with about a 95 engine horsepower tractor, 84 PTO, and it does kind of just plays along with it. What this ditch here does is it'll drain off some pockets of water, and it'll take it down to a main ditch. It's still a little soft because we've had a lot of moisture in the last couple weeks here, but as you can see, there's not very much water laying in this field, so it'll dry out quick once we get a little sun come along. But it's really a nice piece of marsh. That particular ditcher, we spent some time on our pasture land. We took the better part of an afternoon, and we covered about 40 acres cleaning out the old cross drains that our ancestors had done with ditching spades. And I'm sure in that 7 hours we were able to cover more ground than they would have in a whole season. So it's just another tool that we can use on our farm to help with drainage. Like I said, this field here, it might look a little choppy, but we're anticipating on plowing this and harrowing it up and seeding this particular 8.5, 9 acres down. And so this clover plow down should add some extra nitrogen, and we should have a pretty good crop. But we're going to put oats, ryegrass, and red clover again, but underseed it to Timothy and clover. And it'll make some nice feed for our cattle. I'm walking over to our next block of marsh here that we had land formed last year. It's last fall we put some ditches through it to help with drainage, hoping we'd be able to get on it a little earlier this spring. And as you can see, this is slightly a wetter block of marsh than the previous ones. There's still a little water laying there, but once it dries up, we'll get these ditches so they can drain a little better. But we'll be draining down into the ditch down there. My father, he applied some lime on there today to boost up the pH on this particular block. This year we'll be taking a cut of oats, ryegrass, and red clover over this, and we'll wait one more year before we seed this one down for good. This block we'd almost like to try vetch in it as our legume. I think we'll still stick with some clover, but maybe try some vetch. I mean, with farming, everyone, you got to experiment to keep things interesting, almost like Christmas morning every day. You know, whether you're going to the barn and checking your cattle that you've done some genetic selection on, and same thing when you come to the field. You know, when you're doing some genetics via plants, it's always nice to see how your yield comes along, whether it be in round bales, square bales. You know, when you're mowing, you see your header right full. It's I don't know, kind of gets me excited, especially since I've known how this marsh, the history in this marsh, and what it means to me and my family, how it just kind of grew marginal stuff, and to think on how much feed we can actually get off this. We still have another 10 acre plus to crown this year, so you know, we got 45 acres of marsh, and we're going to be aiming for 10 bales to the acre. So to think off 45 acres in one season, you could bring home about 450 bales of premium silage to feed your cattle and grow pounds of beef. It kind of fires me up a little bit. I'm just kind of walking over to this next field here that we're going to be landforming later on this summer. So I'll try to keep you posted on how. Here we are walking across this block of marsh that we're going to be crowning this year. I think there's somewhere handy 15 acres here. And as you can see, it's not really growing the best. It's just native type grasses. There's a lot of water laying in this type marsh. But we're going to take this block here at right angles as to what it is. And we're going to be running it back towards our other flats here. You know, that way we're not fighting the wind when we're trying to make stuff. It gives us a nice long run, so we'll be able to speed up our harvest time, and we won't be bumping across all these old ditches that, like I say, our forefathers did with a ditching spade. You can see how the water's laying here too, and maybe I can get a picture of some moss here. Yeah, but you know, there's a lot of unproductive marshland here, but we're going to completely change that. And like our other blocks that we've already, you know, had crowned up and got seeded down, we're going to do this to the whole marsh. And we're aiming for handy 10 bales to the acre. You know, so off this block of marsh, which is about 45 acres that we'll have crowned after this season, we should be able to harvest handy 450 bales. You know, you can see how wet this is out here. But like I said, we're going to get it drained, we're going to get it crowned, we're going to improve the fertility and improve your pH, and we'll get growing some real good crops out here, which is going to equate to a lot of pounds of beef.